Cove. Who are you talking to?" And just then, Mr. Holden came by to see the visitor. His expression brightened when Cove took a step to the side so that he could see you there. "Always good to see you, Hark. We're not really that... I guess, sure. We're not really that close, but okay. Not in this universe. But why are you standing out there? Come on in." He gestured for you to come inside, and you did, so... Sliding in past Cove, Kyra popped out from another room after hearing the noise, and a big smile grew on her face.
Hi.
"Hi, Hark. So glad I got to see you today. We're not really that close, but okay. Hello." Nodding, Kyra turned her attention back to her boys. She patted Cliff on the arm with this warm smile, and then she enveloped Cove in a crushing hug. Initially, Cove squirmed to break free from her grip, but his mom was unfazed and kept him locked in place. Heartbeats later, he gave in and hugged her back tightly.
I'm so glad.
"And I'm so happy this trip was a success." Cliff looked like he was bursting with pride. And then Cove stiffened. Kyra loosened her hold on him enough to study his face, concerned. She spoke her next words in a whisper that had been meant just for her son.
What do you think?
"Do you want to unshelve it?" Raising an eyebrow, Cliff watched him carefully. His smile began to falter.
What's wrong?
"What's wrong?" Cove sighed and his gaze flickered over to you for a moment, and then just as quick it was back to his parents.
It's okay.
"It's all right."
Really?
"Are you sure?" "I don't want to do it now. I can tell Dad later." Nervously, you watched the exchange with the growing suspicion that Cove didn't want to leave that conversation while you were there. You wondered if you should offer to leave when Kyra gave Cove a pat on their head.
All right.
"You can always call me if you want to be part of the conversation, okay?" "I'll call. Thanks, Mom." Cliff still looked baffled about what Kyra and Cove were referring to. I have no idea. I don't remember. But you watched as his shoulder slowly relaxed. You figured that he decided to wait for Cove to be ready to talk to him. And with Cliff's silence, things seemed to be settled for now. After that, it wasn't long before the taxi arrived, rolling up in front of the house and in a clear view of the open door. Kyra stood up, smiling sadly. "Well, that's my ride." "Yeah." The matching reply got a chuckle out of Kyra as you all filed out of the house. Father and son went with Kyra's bags in hand. Once outside, you spotted your family waiting by the street, and to your surprise, Derek was also with them. "There's my boo." He stood uncomfortably, and he waved as soon as you noticed him.
What's up?
"Hi. Hey, Hark. Hi, Cove. When did you get here?" "My dad dropped me off just a little bit ago. Thought I could visit one more time before school started."
Sorry.
"You picked a busy time. Sorry." Derek couldn't even look at Cove. He nervously kept rolling a pebble with the bottom of his shoe.
Sorry.
"I wasn't even thinking that your mom would be leaving today. I'm sorry, dude." "What? You're not interrupting anything. You're always welcome here." "Heck yeah, he is." "It would have been sad if I didn't get to say goodbye before leaving." "I think so too." It was apparent Derek would have preferred to have gotten there at a more opportune moment. He never liked seeming impolite, but the reassuring words soothed his worries. The tension he was holding in his body lessened, and he looked like he was feeling much more like himself. "Bye, Derek. It was fun getting to know you." "Bye, ma'am. Is there anything I can do to help?" Nah, don't worry yourself over that. We're just about set." In that short amount of time, Cliff had gathered and packed the bags into the trunk. Kyra took one last look at everyone and sighed. "All right, I don't want to keep the driver waiting. It's time to head out." The little crowd that had formed around started their chorus off farewells and well wishes traveling, but Kyra still made no move to get into the taxi. She placed her attention on Cove. "I'll call when I get to the airport and when I make it to Nevada." "Also, you better call the moment you walk in the door at home. Otherwise, you'll be wondering all night if you got into trouble on the way there."
Can do.
"I can do that." "And could you call tomorrow too, so I can tell you how school went?" "Of course. I want to hear all about it." Kyra put a hand on Cove's head and affectionately ruffled his hair one last time. She then let go, only to move into squeezing his cheeks in her hands instead. "Mom,
Go.
I love you so much, baby." She was chuckling by the time she freed him and rounded off with a small tap to the tip of his nose. Cove rubbed his face with a grin. Finally, she walked to the car while waving and took her seat in the taxi. Cliff hooked an arm around Cove's shoulder and kept him close as it began to pull away. For a moment, Cove looked up at his dad and then wrapped his arm across his back.
Bye.
"Bye, Mom." "Bye. Travel safe." Kyra rolled down the window and stuck her head out of it. She waved again while blowing kisses at Cove and Cliff. "See you again." Before she was out of sight, you decided to call out with your family and hers. "Wave goodbye. Watch quietly." I'm not going to be rude. I'm going to wave goodbye. As the taxi headed down the road, you stuck your hand out in the air to send her off. The cab turned down another road and completely disappeared from view. Cove let go of his dad and took a few steps into the empty street, still looking in the direction his mom went. He smiled quietly, deep in thought. You got the impression Cove was feeling better than he was earlier. He was finally content with the way things were. You jumped a bit when your mom put a hand on your shoulder, pulling you away from your thoughts. She smiled when you looked at her. This is a great vacation, huh? Oh, heck yeah, I spent so much time with Derek. Oh, the best. Yeah, I don't think so. You nod in agreement. You shrugged. I don't know. Summer isn't over until the second I fall asleep. Yeah. That's what I was hoping to hear. Cove walked back over to the group, still genuinely happy. Derek grinned at him welcomingly, and everyone else there smiled at him, even Elizabeth. Well? Ma clapped her hands together, bringing everyone's attention back to the present. It's almost lunchtime. I think I'll put something special together. Her eyes sparkled with a plan, and Mom smiled. I bet you could use some help with that. That'd be absolutely wonderful. Derek glanced between the two, his eyebrows furrowed. I love this Mom's outfit. It's very cute on her. Is there something I could do? Always a gentleman. Your mom exchanged a fond expression. Ma shook her head.
How sweet.
That's very sweet, Derek, but it's all right. It's not your job. Technically, your dad left you under Cliff's watch. You're meant to be taken care of by him, not doing chores for the neighbors. Mom laughed a little over her own joke. You watched Derek look away, discouraged.
It's okay.
It's okay. I don't mind. He was a little bashful about it. You wondered if Mom's joke had just reminded him that he wasn't initially meant to be invited to lunch. It was getting a little awkward. Mom grinned sympathetically. Her comment was meant to lighten the mood, not bring it back down. Ma tried again to get things moving forward. Why don't you kids go have fun? You all can come back in about an hour. We'll make enough for everyone. Mom nodded in agreement.
Sounds good.
Another stunning idea, Lonnie. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That sounds like a plan, then. I don't want to cramp your style. I've got some stuff to work on, so I can be out of your hair this afternoon. You should come by later, too. No reason you should be the odd man out. Mom seemed amused as Cliff rubbed his neck nervously. He grinned a wavering but pleased smile.
Thanks very much.
I appreciate the invite. He looked over the assembled crowd with knowing glances. I can help, too. With as many people as you're feeding, that's going to be a lot of food. Didn't you hear what we told Derek? It wouldn't be fair to make you cook when we're the ones who are inviting you in. Ma raised an eyebrow when Cliff waved it off.
Come on.
I insist. Derek would be missing time with his pals. This would be a break for me. I'm quite the chef. Ma and Mom exchanged further glances before Mom shrugged. An airtight argument. If you're sure, we'll be happy to have you, Chef Cliff. Cliff's grin widened and seemed more hyped than you'd expect him to be about helping with lunch. Cove shook his head, a fond smile in his face. Then all us grown-up people will be heading inside. I assume the rest of you kiddos are staying out? Maybe not all of them. Ma tilted her head, a silent question for Elizabeth. Your sister thought for a moment.
All right.
I'll stay with the kids.
That's fantastic.
That's great. That's great. Both your moms smiled at her while Derek and Cove didn't seem to appreciate her phrasing. But with the plan decided, all three parents waved and headed for your house. It was just you teenagers now. Elizabeth looked at you and the others, a curious expression on her face.
So?
What now? You silently wondered if Elizabeth only stayed out with you to avoid getting roped into work. Probably. Then again, she could just genuinely wanted to hang out. You couldn't tell with your sister. Couldn't tell. Cove spoke up after no one else did to answer Elizabeth's question. Want to go down to the shopping street? It's been a while, and I don't think there's a lot of other things we could agree on. Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
Sounds awesome to me. Unlike you guys, I haven't been there 1,001 times. It's new to me. Let's do it. Okay, if you guys really want to. There's nothing else to do. Let's do it. You strolled across the road as a group down to the beach and then to the left. It took less than 15 minutes to arrive, one of the conveniences of Sunset Bird. The four of you looked around at familiar shops, trying to see if anything caught your attention this time. Derek was the most enthusiastic. He checked out every stall with his eyes wide with wonder. Elizabeth and Cove were in good spirits as well. That's so cool! He ran over to a street magician who was currently doing a card trick for a group of enchanted tourists. Derek clapped when the magician showed a middle-aged man his card. Derek turned back to the group with a curious gleam on his face. What does it take to perform here anyway? Do you have to ask somebody, or do you just show up and start doing stuff? Who would you even ask? It's a public street. Hey, Miss Mayor, can I pull a rabbit out of my hat? Please, Flopsy is well behaved, I promise. Derek chuckled, his eyes searching up and down the scene. Maybe there's a boss of the shopping street. No one does any of this around my neighborhood. It's just regular stores behind walls. It's different if someone wants a real store. But here, I'm pretty sure people are just putting on their little shows whenever they want and do whatever. That's so neat. Would we be allowed to do something too? Cove laughed, and Derek began almost vibrating with excitement. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. What would we do? Well, I don't know what. Not yet. I mean, I just found out it's a possibility, you know. But there's gotta be something. We know cool stuff. I'm sure if we think about it, we could plan a show that really get a crowd pumped. You thought it was a great idea and wanted to be part of it. You felt he could try this idea on his own. You thought Derek needed to abandon that idea. Stat. You gave a look at the other two. Yeah, it's a great idea. I'm totally in. Ooh, yeah, we totally should. Woo!
Nice.
I knew I could count on you. Now we just need to act. It'll come to us. Right. With some amusement, the gang continued to peruse the stalls. Elizabeth found some earrings with a dangling, badly misprinted globe that everyone laughed at. Cove picked out a blob as Iceland, but Derek thought it had to be Greenland.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is a world with what looks like 9 continents. I think you're both wrong. You wanted to side with Cove. You backed up Derek. You agreed with his sister. No, it's Australia. You stay out of it. I'm gonna back up my boy. I trust Derek to know his geography. He's a smarty.
Thanks.
And smarties are sexy. Oh, thanks, Hark. Suddenly Cove froze. You stared at him and then tried to see what caught his attention. When you saw a familiar face down the way, it all made sense. Between the crowds, his bright hair stood out like a neon green bowl in a kitchen sink. It was Jeremy. I really don't care. Jeremy slowly drifted his eyes down the street and his eyes widened in mutual recognition. He definitely noticed you. Derek frowned and Cove sighed. Neither of them were happy to see him again. You stood there shocked. You glared at Jeremy. You waved at Jeremy. You decided to smile at Jeremy. You looked away. I'm just gonna look away. You didn't want to even start with Jeremy's shenanigans today. Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. Her gaze swept over Jeremy without a hint of a clue. Jeremy simply scoffed to himself and waded deeper into the crowd of people. Derek relaxed and exhaled loudly. I'm glad he's not going to start anything. He peeked over at Elizabeth with a tiny smirk. See, that was the mean kid.
What?
Huh? She still didn't get it. That first summer day hadn't made nearly as much of an impression on her as it did for Derek. But he smiled and waved it off. Just forget about him. I already have. He laughed and Cove smiled lightly. He seemed in a much better mood now that Jeremy was gone. Your eyes wandered over to where Jeremy disappeared. You hadn't forgotten a day you met him, either. He was only going to be in town for a vacation with the parents he hated. That glimpse was probably the last time you would ever see him. You mentioned that realization to everyone. You kept the thought to yourself. Well, that should be the last we'll see of Bowl Cut. I bet he's about to get out of here since the summer's over. I wouldn't say that. You kept the thought to yourself. Elizabeth snapped her fingers in front of your face. Apparently you had spaced out. Cove and Derek were already at the next stall. Come on, unless you want to get left here. You nodded and caught up with others. Cove raised an eyebrow. What were you thinking about? Nothing. He gave you a searching look, but let it drop when Derek yelled out at you to go check something out. You couldn't help but wonder, though, what would have happened if you would have interacted with Jeremy more? No, I wouldn't have wondered that at all. No, game, stop, railroading me into things. I would have had zero thought about that. You were glad that you wouldn't find out. Jeremy was unlike anyone you had ever met before. You thought he was horrible. You thought he was weird. You thought he was stupid. You thought he was kind of pitiful. You thought he was kind of okay. You didn't know what to think about. You thought he was kind of pitiful. You and the group moved on from the stall and from Jeremy. It didn't take long for everyone to return to the joking. You all enjoyed what little time you had left, as Elizabeth mentioned the hour was almost up. The little trip had flown by, and lunch must have been waiting for you now. Derek bounced on the balls of his feet.
Okay.
Come on, guys, let's get going so we can eat. I'm starving. If we have to. I can't wait. Phew, I've had enough walking around. Homebound, here we go. You nodded silently. I can't wait. Cove stretched one of his little arms lazily. Let's go then. You nodded at him. Then you followed Elizabeth as she took it upon herself to lead the way home. She walked fast, much faster than Derek preferred. You're right, because Derek has shorter legs. She kept gaining a lead, and then Derek would jog back up to the group. With Cove's long legs, he had no trouble keeping up. Derek is so cute. You moved to the front with Elizabeth. You walked side by side with Cove. You stayed with Derek. You gave Derek some company, which made him brighten up considerably. He brought up his idea of trying to make up a performance again, and you listened to his plans. For the most part, you could tell he was being silly on purpose, but there was a shine in his eyes. You both got so engrossed in the conversation that you didn't notice how far you'd fallen behind your sister until Cove looked over his shoulder and shouted something. Derek grinned at you and then tried to make it a race to catch up with Elizabeth. It was a pleasant walk home, and in no time you made it back. Derek got the front door and held it open for everyone as you each moseyed inside. Such a gentleman. The three parents were still in the kitchen. They looked up and waved. Welcome back, everyone. You made it just in time.
Hey.
I hope you're hungry. So, did everyone have a nice time out? She gestured for people to take a seat at the table. Plates and silverware have already been placed out. You took your normal seat. Elizabeth sat across from you, and Derek took the seat to your left.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we had a great time. It was fine. It was nice. I really liked it. It was okay, I guess. Yeah, the bank heist went off without a hitch. Your joke got some chuckles going around the table. That's good in my book. Casually, Mr. Holden sat in the empty seat across from Cove. He smiled at you and all the other kids. Mom set down a platter full of water glasses on the table. She looked down at the gathering. It's a good thing we have 8 chairs. I can't remember the last time we've had a group this big over for a meal. Can you pass the drinks down to the other side? Make sure you all get one. Sure. Those close to the cups obliged and started offering waters around. As everything got set up, Ma chided Elizabeth to take her elbows off the table.
No.
And you shouldn't slouch. She pointed to Mr. Holden, who was leaning forward with both arms on the table. Oops. Mr. Holden seemed unsure about all the sudden attention and carefully rearranged his posture to something suitable for a fancy dinner. He smiled sheepishly at Ma. Elizabeth rolled her eyes, and Ma gave a level look at her. You shouldn't be impolite to a guest in the house either. Elizabeth groaned, long suffering. Ma giggled, and Mr. Holden chuckled.
Not bad.
A lot of you here could learn a thing or two from Derek. He has the best manners here. I agree. Derek blushed, but it was true. His posture was upright and formal. He even held his fork gracefully. That's my man. His table manners, on top of all of his attempts to age your parents, made him the model of meal attendee behavior.
Aw.
It's nothing. It's true, though. You've been a lovely guest. I've noticed that, too. It's always nice when you stay over, Derek. Derek smiled and sat a little taller in his chair. And do you have anything good to say about our other guest? She looked deliberately at Cove with its teasing smirk. Or is there just nothing to say? Well, Cove is my number 1, but he does still clean his hands by wiping them on his pants. Cove frowned at that and absentmindedly brushed his hands on his pant legs. Your mom laughed lightly.
There.
Elizabeth, you should know, after all these years, Cove is hardly a guest anymore. Really? We don't really hang out. Cove smiled awkwardly. Thanks. Manners. Who cares? I don't think that's that big of a deal. You teased Cove for his bad habit. You complimented Derek on his politeness. You joked that Derek was basically an adult. You kept quiet to go buy the food. You complimented Derek on his politeness. It's cool how you know all those manner things. Oh, thank you. I like to believe that I know the manner things too. He seemed more embarrassed by getting a compliment from a kid his age. Everyone ate their meal together and continued to hang out for the afternoon. After food, you and the others played a couple games and talked about plans for the upcoming year. The time passed by quickly, and soon it was time to part ways. Mr. Holden talked to your moms, and Cove drifted over to you, knowing that as soon as his dad finished up, he would be leaving. I guess we're going.
Okay.
Yeah, bye. Could you move? I need the phone. Cove raised an eyebrow, and Elizabeth impatiently gestured behind him. Cove realized he was standing right in front of where the receiver was placed. He sidestepped out of the way and shook his head, clearly thinking Elizabeth was rushing too much. Your sister made a beeline for the phone and started dialing the number of what you figured was one of her friends. Knowing Elizabeth, she was going to be on there for a while. You, Cove, and Derek shuffled closer to the door. It seemed like Mr. Holden was wrapping up his conversation, so everyone started saying their various farewells.
Talk to you later.
See you later, Cove. We gotta do this again sometime. Yeah, see you. Cove turned to you and smiled slightly. Bye, Hark. You waved goodbye to him. He waved back with a curt gesture.
Dude.
Seriously, dude, we'll have to hang out later. I'm gonna miss you during school. He offered Cove a high five when the two boys clapped their hands together. I'm glad that they're good friends. Cove and his dad left soon after that. Your parents started cleaning up the house, and Elizabeth was still chatting to her friends on the phone. It was just you and Derek left, as it should be. He elected to stay outside in front of the house to wait for his dad to pick him up. He decided to keep your guest company, although he was originally Cove's visitor. A light summer breeze blew through your hair, and Derek shifted his weight from foot to foot. Thanks for waiting with me. He kicked at the ground distractedly.
Well,
Dad's still gonna be a while, so you wanna go for a walk? I thought you'd never ask. Sounds great. One last trip for the day. It is fitting, ending the summer with Derek. The two of you walked down the street again, just wandering without a destination planned. It was a quiet stroll, too quiet for Derek being the company. You turned to him when you had noticed that he wasn't saying a word. That was unusual. Derek always had something you could chat about. You weren't sure if you should ask about it. Somehow you ended up at the old park near the beach. You glanced over to Derek once more, still expecting him to say something any second now. However, nothing came from him. In fact, you noticed a frown creeping on his face. Derek smiled when he realized you were watching. At least his mouth was turned up. There wasn't anything that really felt happy in expression. He turned away and the smile fell off his face. His eyes stared intently at the ground and you raised an eyebrow. Is everything okay? If I want to talk about something, I'm here. Derek, what's going on? You kept quiet. If you want to talk about something, I'm here. I'm a little sad. It's just, with school starting back up again, it's going to be harder to visit. I'm going to have homework and clubs and practices and everything else.
Sucks.
It really sucks. We go to different schools. His face screwed up and his fists were closed tightly together. This was really concerning him. What if we don't have time? You channeled some optimism into the conversation. You shared those worries. No, I'll be optimistic. We'll make time. We can talk over the phone and have plans for weekends. It'll be okay. Let love be your guide. Derek looked up at the sky. It was orange and purple with little wisps of clouds scattered around. A plane flew high with a jet stream trailing behind it. Then he turned to the ground again. Derek's face was tilted far enough down that it was harder to read his expression. Hey, Hark, I actually wanted to talk to you about something, if you don't mind. There was a pause, and you waited for him to finish his thought.
Sorry.
I was just kind of wondering, do you like guys at all? Like, would you ever want to be with someone who was a boy? Sorry if that's weird to ask. Have you not been paying attention during every single moment I had with you, Derek? What kind of a question is that? I've been holding hands with you, and asked you on a date, for goodness sakes. I could be with a guy. I don't want to be with a guy. Maybe? I don't know. You didn't answer him. I kind of don't want to talk about that. I could be with a guy. Okay, then. He hesitated before finishing his question. So, what I mean is, is there any guy you think is kind of cool that you like around here? Not at school or anything like that. He ducked his head further. You thought about it. Again, have you not been paying attention? I wish that they probably should have modified this a little bit. It's kind of obvious that we like Derek. He shouldn't feel like it's so obvious. It is painfully obvious. This feels really weird that he's even doubting this. He ducked his head further. You thought about it. I was very explicit. I like you. Well, I like Cove, Mr. Holden. There are a lot of guys. Mr. Holden. Cove's dad is really kind of rad. There are a lot of guys I think are cool. Not right now. I don't really want to say that. I like you. Derek's eyes widened. For a moment you wondered if his heart had stopped because he stood there, completely frozen. Then quietly, almost breathlessly, he asked a question.
Really?
Really? Maybe you don't really get what I'm asking about. He mumbled to himself for a while. No, we went on a date, Derek. We went on a date. So Derek pulled himself together. Somewhat meekly, he looked at you while he tried to project confidence. His posture was too tight for you to believe it. He was nervous.
All right.
You know, thinking ahead and everything is important. You've got to get yourself a game plan and all that. It's good to make plans, especially backup plans. He babbled, all full of energy and forced gusto. Well, anyways, I heard about this thing where people make pacts with their good friends that if they don't find anyone else, then they get together. I think this is new. I don't think we had this last time. Together. Like, they get married and stuff. So I was thinking, since it's good to have plans, it might be cool if we did something like that. Ooh, do we get a promise ring? Can I get your sports jacket? Can I get your Letterman's jacket? His eyes widened, and he started to make frantic hand gestures. Just, then we'd never have to worry about the future or finding someone. We can set it like a whole decade in the future. Forever from now. We'd have graduated high school and probably college too. We'd have jobs and be really grown up. I mean, we'd probably have our own places and maybe our own pets and student loans and cars. Derek babbled on for a while more. It was as if all the words he held in silence during your walk had burst out now all at once. So, yeah, what do you think? Are you asking me out, Derek? That's a good idea. I think having a backup plan sounds smart. Can I answer that with a kiss? Can we just have our first kiss now? Why can't we be each other's first choice? That's a good idea. I think having a backup plan sounds smart. Why can't we be each other's first choice? Derek, I do know what you're talking about. I like you. I'll think about it. I don't think that would work. I'm sorry, Derek. Do you like me? Derek, I do know what you're talking about. I like you. Why can't we be each other's first choice? I'll just be upfront. Derek, I do know what you're talking about. I like you. Why won't you listen to me? He had to pause, desperate to find a way to explain himself. Well, that's a big decision. You don't have to think about that kind of thing right now. It's better to worry about all that later, when we're grown up. Yeah, but we're old enough to know if we like each other. That's why it's a good idea to have a plan, you know? I like you a lot too, and honestly, we'd work out the best for that. We would work out the best for that. So, that's a good idea. I think having a backup plan sounds smart. It's a deal. I'll think about it. I don't think that would work. I'm sorry, Derek. I'm wondering what he would say if I said, why can't we be each other's first choice? He had to pause, desperate to find a way to explain himself. Well, that's a big decision. You don't have to think about that kind of right now. It's better to worry about that all later when we're grown up. That's why it's a good idea. Okay. I'm just gonna go with the, wait, I like you, and just be very explicit, because he was explicit to me back, so I like you. Why won't you listen to me? It's a big decision, so it's a good, I like you a lot too, and also we would work out the best for that. So, it's a deal.
Really?
Really? Awesome. Derek brightened significantly and started to bounce excitedly on the balls of his feet. Okay then, let's do it. Oh, look at this! Look at this! My boy! Oh, Derek. Derek. He held out his hand, offering a shake. Officially, he repeated the terms of the deal. If in 10 years I, Derek Suarez, am still single, and if in 10 years you, Harkangel, are still single, we both agree that the two of us will get together. You shook his hand. I kind of made a pact, sort of. It was a joke. I wasn't going to hold onto it, but one of my best friends and my first crush in elementary school, we sort of made a pact. Now, he's straight. He is 100% straight. But we were best friends. And we basically were like, okay, once we're 40, if we turn 40 and both of us are single, then we're gonna become domestic partners, basically. You know, not necessarily like boyfriends, because again, he's straight. But we were like, if we're both alone, don't have anyone, domestic partners. That was like the deal. Fortunately for him, and for me, of course, fortunately for both of us, we ended up finding people. So, but it was really cute. You shook his hand. You kissed him on the cheek. You kissed him on the lips. Derek, let's seal the deal. You kissed him on the lips. You passed right by his outstretched arms and placed a slight kiss against his smiling mouth. When you parted, oh, nice. When you parted, Derek gasped and slapped the hand against his chest. Oh, that works too.
It's a deal.
All right, thanks. I feel better about the future already. He laughed and scratched the back of his head. You could tell he was giddy about this, and you felt happy too. I am too. Glad to hear it, fiancé. Sort of. You nodded. Life's gonna be smooth sailing now. I respect your commitment to preparation. Glad to hear it, fiancé. Sort of. Glad to say it, kind of fiancé. Aw, that was so cute. You didn't spend much longer at the park after that. Derek didn't want to miss his dad, so you both made your way back to your street. Derek's steps forward seemed lighter than before. After Derek went back home, you decided to settle in for the night. Stretching your arms over your head, you noticed that the living room and the phone were free. You took it easy. I'm gonna call Lee. Tell her, I have a fiancé. You picked up the receiver and quickly punched in the familiar number while going to take a seat on the couch. Soon enough, after explaining the situation to the housekeeper, Lee answered. Hey! Hi, Lee. Can you talk? Definitely. We practically have to. My gosh, can you believe it's almost time for school to start? What happened to our summer? School starts first thing tomorrow for me. Ew, and I thought starting next week was bad enough. Enjoy your last week. Oh, I will. I hope you'll survive your first day. I'm looking forward to it. Then I have nothing to worry about. You'll have a better chance at surviving. And at least summer was nice while it lasted, right? We were busy. Yeah, I had my first kiss with a trophy boyfriend, Derek Suarez.